Now, I just heard a wild prediction about XRP that made me almost spit out my coffee. It's so crazy that I didn't believe it until I checked the data myself and had my mind blown. Now, let me set the stage here, right? Bitcoin just blew past an all-time high above $124,000, and the whole crypto market is playing, at least partying again, right? Now, my phone was buzzing with alerts, Bitcoin at $124,000. You know, Ether was up, even meme coins were in the green. It kind of felt like 2021 all over again. And a lot of that was, of course, my beloved XRP was climbing as well, right? Now, XRP hit around $3.35 when Bitcoin made that huge move. So I was hyped, but then I noticed something. XRP still didn't break its high from back in July. It was kind of like everyone else was having a kind of wild night, and XRP was designated driver, going up, sure, but soberly, right? So I'm just sitting here wondering to myself, is XRP going to join the party properly or what? Now, I'm sitting here in Monaco of all places thinking to myself, okay, XRP, when's it your turn to get a little crazy? And right on cue, I stumbled onto this Twitter thread by an analyst who goes by the name of Dr. Cat. Now, this guy is pretty widely kind of followed by, at least for his kind of Bitcoin analysis anyway. And then for today, he's actually talking about XRP, and not just any XRP. He's talking XRP in double digits. And yes, you did indeed hear that right. Now, according to this Dr. Cat, XRP could reach between, or at least somewhere between $19 and $32 during this bull run. So my first reaction was, no way. I mean, I've ridden the XRP roller coaster for a while now. Seeing it stuck under $1 for a while in the bear market was pretty rough. Even getting back to $3, it felt like a huge win. So hearing $20 to $30 kind of felt like someone telling me that the earth is, well, flat maybe. You never know, right? Now, you know that skeptical eyebrow raise that many people do. That was kind of me. But when I thought, okay, let's kind of hear the man out, right? Because if there's one thing that crypto has taught me, it's to actually never say never. So here is Dr. Cat's details, right? His prediction isn't just a random moonshot. It's actually based on some pretty interesting math and history. Now, he basically says if Bitcoin goes absolutely bananas to, let's say, $270,000, XRP could tag along in a big way. And by big, I mean roughly 6x to 10x from where it is today. Now, he'd also get those numbers. You might be thinking, where on earth did he get those numbers? Well, he's looking at XRP BTC pair, like the ratio of XRP's price to Bitcoin's price. And right now, that ratio is around 0.000026. In other words, one XRP is worth about 0.000026 of a Bitcoin, roughly 2,675 Satoshis, if you speak in sats, that is. Anyway, Dr. Cat thinks that that ratio could actually shoot up somewhere between 0.00007 and 0.00012 BTC, or 7,000 to 12,000 Satoshis. Now, why do I care about all these tiny ratio numbers, you might be thinking? Well, here's the thing. If Bitcoin's price explodes to, let's say, $270,000, and XRP's ratio climbs to 0.001, just, picking a middle point in that range, then the actual kind of price of XRP would be, drumroll, if I had an editor, I would probably put one in, about $27. So you can do the math then. 0.001 times $270,000 equals 27. Bingo, right? In other words, if Bitcoin doubles from here, then XRP manages to reclaim a level against Bitcoin that it once had back in the past, then we could see XRP go 6 to 10x higher than its recent $3 level. So that is how Dr. Cat arrives at this $19 to $32 range. Now, I know it sounds like crypto fairy tale, but Dr. Cat points to history for justification. He shared a chart of XRP versus Bitcoin from the last big crypto bull run of 2017 to 2018. And guess what? back then, in that insane era, XRP's value against Bitcoin did actually hit that 7 to 12,000 Satoshi range. And get this, the chart that he's referencing, it shows XRP BTC is actually approaching that long-term resistance zone right now. And here is the thing, right? A key level of around 6,971 Satoshis, pretty specific, I know, and another around kind of 12,193 Satoshis. Now those were like the kind of brick ceilings from 2017 and 2018 that XRP never broke again. Now, yet at least the pair has actually been, sneaking up towards the first ceiling. So Dr. Cat is watching for a potential breakout here. So if XRP BTC breaks through those old levels, basically meaning XRP gains value against Bitcoin, beyond kind of those kind of past highs, then the path is quite clear, at least in his view, for XRP to rip upwards in price. In kind of plainer English, XRP might be gearing up to reclaim its kind of former glory, at least relative to Bitcoin. Now, timeline-wise, he's not claiming that this is going to happen tomorrow, right? Dr. Cap is actually eyeing up 2026 for this potential and possible play, okay? That's kind of like maybe a year or so from where we are today, give or take, right? Now, it makes sense because if Bitcoin is going to $270,000, that's probably not going to happen in a week, right? It's part of a much longer rally that could stretch into 2026. So he's basically saying, yeah, XRP to $20, it could happen, but you've got to be patient and Bitcoin needs to be climbing. So for context here, a lot of people expect this bull run to maybe kind of peak in 2025, but an extended cycle into 2026 isn't off the table. And Dr. Cat's outlook actually suggests that he thinks crypto partly could roll a little bit longer this time around. Now, of course, my brain immediately went, okay, but what if Bitcoin does not hit $270,000? Because let's be real, crypto predictions often overshoot, sure, right? Now, Bitcoin, is killing it right now at around, that $124,000 recent high, but, $270,000 is more than double of that. It's not impossible, but hey, right? We've seen Bitcoin 10x before in bull runs, but also far from guaranteed. Now, for someone on Twitter actually kind of asked, Dr. Cat, this exact question. What if Bitcoin only goes to, let's say, $175,000 instead of $270,000? I was actually kind of super curious how he would answer this one, because that changes the equation quite a lot, right? And Dr. Cat basically said in that case, he would switch to plan B, and he didn't reveal what plan B is. Mysterious, I know. Now that response tells me that even Dr. Cat knows that this $19 to $32 scenario is contingent on Big Daddy Bitcoin continuing to pump hard then. No $270,000 BTC, maybe no $30 XRP, at least not in this same timetable. Now, at least by now, I'm absorbing all of this and thinking to myself, is this guy the only one seeing XRP in double digits soon, or are there other people feeling the same kind of vibes? And it turns out that there's a lot in the curious here, right? Other analysts have been, have tossed out, I guess, their own XRP targets, and they are also pretty bullish. Must be something in the water, right? Now, for instance, you have Mario Nafal. If you're on crypto Twitter, then you probably know this name. I didn't know about this guy until just a couple of months ago, mind. Anyway, he speculated that if Bitcoin blasts past that psychological $200,000 level, then he specifically said around 225 by December this year. Now, XRP could reach around $10 by then. By December of this year, not bad, right? Now, when I read that, I was like, hold on, December? That's just around the corner. Mario's, being ambitious with his timeline, but hey, if BTC somehow zips to $225,000 in the next few months, XRP at $10 doesn't sound too crazy. So it's kind of roughly triple where XRP is right now. I know it's just taken a little bit of a hit and it's dropped down a little bit lower than $3, so you can know maybe it's triple from where we are, a little bit more. Which in the face of, it isn't actually that bad. It was, at least in which a kind of face-melting Bitcoin rally could actually happen, right? Then we have Carl, the Moon, also known as the Moon on YouTube if you're on there. He's coming in with a pretty spicy take, right? Give or take his kind of personal take on this one, and you can let me know what your thoughts are. But he's thinking it could hit $30 in the same time frame. Now, he didn't pin it into a specific kind of Bitcoin price like Mario did, but he did mention expecting Ethereum to reach $25,000 by then. So can we hold him to that one? That would be nice. So basically, Carl is envisioning a scenario where the entire crypto market goes berserk then, right? And Bitcoin was, way past that kind of 6-figure level. Ethereum is at 5 figures and XRP is tagging along at $30. Now that sounds like a full-blown mania phase to me, which, to be fair, we might be entering given how things have been at least heating up recently. But $30 XRP by the year end, that's a moonshot, right? Pun intended. Now, part of me kind of files that under the possible, but I'm not betting the farm on it kind of scenario. And let's not forget the ever colourful researcher who calls himself 𝗗𝗶𝘀𝗰𝗋. Love the nickname, by the way. Now, he suggests earlier that XRP might reach between $10 and $14 if Bitcoin surpasses $140,000. Well, Bitcoin is on the doorstep of that as we speak, hoovering in at the 120s, and I know I've taken a bit of a dip, I think 114 today. If BTC hits 140 though in the future and beyond, well, test Mr. Van Winkle's theory soon enough then, right? Thus far, XRP hasn't sprinted to $10, even with BTC making some pretty big moves. But maybe there's a lag, right? In past cycles, altcoins like XRP often lag behind Bitcoin's initial pump and explode later on. So maybe XRP is just kind of biding its time. It's hard to say for sure. So here I am, right? Bombarded with, bullish predictions from multiple directions, right? $10, $14, $19, $30. It's enough to make any XRP holder kind of head spin, right? But in a good way. If even the most conservative of those, let's say $10 comes true, that's still a pretty hefty gain from the $3 level today. And the higher end ones, like $30, well, let's just say that I would be doing cartwheels in my living room, right? I won't lie about that. I started feeling that good old FOMO right there, creeping in. Like, should I buy more XRP before it takes off? Is this my last chance to buy under $5? That kind of thought process. Classic, right? I know. But, you know what? Let's pump the brakes for just a second. It's reality check time, because as excited as I kind of am here, we've got to keep it pretty real, right? And this one might just shock you, but I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile, and you could lose all of the money that you invest. You should always do your own research and consult a qualified professional, right? After all, your investments are entirely your responsibility, and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses, and this video today is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Alright, we had to get that one out of the way. Thanks for bearing with me on that. Now, with our kind of feet back on the ground, let's talk about strategy and mindset then. Right, all of these predictions, as thrilling as they are not promises, they're what-ifs. So I ask myself, right, what is my plan if any of these actually start coming true? Because it's one thing to daydream about winning the crypto lottery, and it's another to basically be prepared for it. Now, I'll be honest, right, I have some price alerts set, and I thought, about that, at least what I would do if XRP hits certain milestones. For example, right, I have this personal goal. If XRP hits $10, I might skim a little off and actually take some profits. Not because I don't believe that it can go any higher, but because taking some profits on the way up is never a bad idea in a crazy market like this. I've learned that one the hard way by hodling some bags for way too long during the 2018 era. And if we really do get into the $20 to $30 territory, I might just throw a little party on my own Discord server. Yes, it's a shameless plug that we have a free educational Discord. The link, of course, is in the description. You can come and celebrate or commiserate with us anytime. Seriously though, right? I would be over the moon and, but also kind of cautious here, right? I've been, at least I've seen coins skyrocket and then crash all the way back down. If XRP went to $30 and I didn't at least sell a little portion, then I would just slide it all the way back down to $5 later. I would probably be kicking myself quite hard, right? So yeah, I'll likely be taking incremental profits if we go parabolic at any point, while still, of course, keeping a moon bag just in case it goes even crazier. Now, speaking of planning, I was chatting with some buddies in that Discord community about their predictions, right? The reactions were a little all over, where one friend is 100% convinced that we're going to $50 and basically said, "You're crazy if you sell at 10." Right? Another friend who is a little bit more skeptical, thinking that we'll probably top out much lower, and those analysts are just, hyping up the project. And then there's me, ping-ponging between optimism and caution like a caffeinated squirrel. In any case, having a community to discuss this with is actually invaluable, right? If you're not in there yet, join us. It's completely free, it's educational, and honestly, it's just nice to have people who understand the roller coaster that you're on. Now, when XRP pumps or dumps, trust me, we have some spicy memes ready to go. Now, let's address something rather important, the why. Why are these people so bullish on XRP, right? And why XRP specifically, right? Is there something fundamentally happening, or is this all just kind of bull market euphoria? Now, I think that it's actually a little bit of both, right? For one, XRP has had a huge cloud hanging over it due to the SEC lawsuit for a few years. Back in 2023, when a judge gave a ruling that basically XRP itself is not a security when sold on at least to the public on exchanges, well, that was a massive win for Ripple and for XRP holders. After that, exchanges that had booted XRP, like Coinbase, started relisting it, right? The price got a nice boost as confidence came back in. So nowadays, XRP is on a much stronger footing legally, than it was, back in the last cycle. Plus, Ripple, that's the company, has been kind of pushing adoption of XRP for cross-border transfers through their ODL on-demand liquidity Ripple payments platform and building partnerships with banks and payment providers. So there is actually some kind of progress underpinning XRP's value beyond just pure speculation. That said, of course, it's a roaring bull market, and a lot of stuff pumps beyond what the fundamentals alone can justify. So when Bitcoin is flying, people start looking for the next big thing to pop. And large cap altcoins like XRP are prime candidates because they're primed, and have kind of pumped hard in the past, right? If there's a bit of self-fulfilling prophecy here, right? People remember the last time that XRP went from 20 cents to $3. Maybe this time it'll go from $3 to $30, and they pile on in. Plenty on that narrative, right? So also there's some belief that if banks and institutions really do start using XRP at scale, it could create insane demand. But that's a larger, longer term kind of story that might not fully play out in a kind of just single bull market cycle. Still, the sentiment is a bit of a mix of improved fundamentals and good old-fashioned FOMO, right? From a kind of chart perspective, the TA kind of geeks out there, the breaking of that 2017 ratio high would be a pretty huge deal. It would signal that XRP is stronger than Bitcoin, at least than it has been in the last kind of 8 years or so. And if that coincides with Bitcoin at a kind of $250,000, well, oh boy, it's hard to even predict how euphoric things could get. Now, crypto has a way of outdoing itself in mania phases. In the 2017 bull run blew minds, right? In 2021 blew 2027 out of the water in terms of sheer scale. Now, this 2025 to 2026 run could take it to a whole nother level. It's almost scary to imagine, but to be honest, I'm just mentally trying to prepare for both insane highs and the possibility of brutal drops, because we're likely going to see both. Now, I should also mention too, for kind of buying or trading XRP, I've been using Kraken Pro lately. Shameless plug number 2 here is that I do have an affiliate link for Kraken that is down in the description. So if you do sign up, trade on it and use it, it actually helps support the channel here. So thank you in advance, but of course there's no pressure. Now, if like Kraken, at least I like Kraken Pro because it kind of, the fees, they are decent and it hasn't given me any kind of headaches so far. Just remember, you've got to trade, at least whenever you kind of trade, you've got to be mindful of not going overboard with leverage or risky bets, right? Volatility and volatile markets, can wreck even seasoned traders if they're not too careful. Now, after kind of circling back to the big picture then, could XRP really hit $30? The skeptic in me can list a bunch of reasons that it might not. Right? Maybe Bitcoin stalls out below 200k. Maybe XRP never really breaks that historical ratio high. Maybe some regulatory or macroeconomic curveball comes. We do live in unpredictable times after all, right? But the dreamer in me looks at how far we've come and thinks, why not? Right? A couple years ago, seeing Bitcoin at $124,000 and XRP at $3 would have sounded like pure fantasy. Yet here we are. So I've learned that in crypto, you got to prepare for the worst, but be ready to be surprised by the upside. There's also the psychology kind of factor here, right? A lot of people have price targets in mind, right? Where they'll actually be selling. And funny enough, if everyone targets $10 as a selling point, the price often kind of punches just past and then kind of just falls short as kind of people, try to kind of outsmart each other. Same with big kind of round numbers, 100k Bitcoin, right? We saw Bitcoin peak at 69k in 2021, arguably because a ton of people were planning to sell at 100k, just because, taking profits a little bit earlier, right? Now, this time around, maybe Bitcoin is 250 or 270 will be that kind of psychological wall. Now for XRP, $10 will be a psychological level and $20 too, right? If enough people are eyeing the $30 because, of these predictions, then maybe we should watch $28 and then crash as sellers jump on in. Or conversely, maybe it just blasts through all of that due to how fast and the FOMO pump is, and maybe we hit $40 before anyone knows it, right? Anything is possible in a frenzy. Now, one promise that I've made to myself is that if we get into those kind of crazy double digits, I'm going to try and stay level-headed. I'm not going to rewatch this video, right? Actually, I might do. I might say, hey, future me right now, right? Just to remind myself of both of the kind of excitement and the kind of caution that I'm feeling right now. It's easy to kind of get, swept up when everything is, of course, mooning. So the bottom line is that, do I think XRP can hit $19 to $32 like Dr. Cat predicts? It's not impossible. It's a scenario that relies on Bitcoin doing big numbers and XRP repeating some history. If I've had a guess here, I'd say that there's a decent chance of hitting the lower end of those predictions in the bull market, if it keeps roaring the way that it is. Dr. Cat gave an 85% probability to reaching $9, which I actually find a little bit more believable. Beyond that, $10 plus seems plausible if Bitcoin keeps on rising. Getting to $20 to $30 might need a perfect storm of Bitcoin mania altcoin season and maybe some stellar news for XRP. It's a high bar, right? But crazier things have happened in crypto. Now, either way, I'm buckled in for this ride, right? Whether we moon or not, right? I'm going to kind of keep you up to date on what I'm seeing and what I am doing. Now, if these updates, these analysts update their kind of predictions, or if Dr. Cat's mysterious plan B comes out, we're definitely going to talk about that too. So stay tuned. And if you've enjoyed this little adventure, at least into the land of crypto possibilities, do me an absolute solid. Hit the like button, hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you're not going to want to miss what comes next.